Everyone uses psychology on you every single day, but most don't know the truly effective techniques. Forget those flashy, ineffective tricks you see everywhere. These 30 dark psychology tricks are actually backed by science and deliver real results. Trick number 1, the name drop. Picture yourself in a crowded room with lots of people talking and moving around. If you want to get your friend's attention, instead of waving your arms or shouting, just use their name. For example, say, "Hey Sarah, over here." When people hear their own name, they instantly pay attention. Using someone's name makes it easier to connect with them and shows that you are speaking directly to them. It also makes the interaction more personal and effective. By calling out their name, you help them notice you in the crowd, making your communication smoother and more direct. Our brains are literally wired to respond to our own names. It's one of the strongest attention triggers we have. The power of this trick extends beyond just getting attention. When you use someone's name repeatedly throughout a conversation, you subconsciously strengthen your connection with them. They feel valued and recognized, which makes them more likely to agree with your requests later. Trick number 2, reflective listening. When talking to someone, if you want them to feel understood, use reflective listening. This means repeating back what they've said but in your own words. For example, if someone says they are stressed about a new project, you might say, "So you're feeling overwhelmed because of the new project, right?" This helps show that you understand their feelings and are really listening. Reflective listening is a great way to build trust and make others feel heard. It helps in conversations by confirming their feelings and showing empathy, making discussions more effective. The real power of reflective listening isn't just that it makes people feel heard, it creates a deep psychological bond. When you accurately reflect someone's words and emotions back to them, they subconsciously begin to see you as someone who truly gets them. This makes them far more likely to trust your opinions and suggestions later. Trick number 3, positive reinforcement. Positive reinforcement means recognizing and praising someone immediately after they do something good. For instance, if a coworker named Alex helps with a report, you should say, "Thanks for jumping in on that report, Alex. It really made a difference." This kind of immediate praise encourages Alex to keep doing good work in the future. Positive reinforcement is a powerful tool for motivating people and creating a supportive environment. It shows appreciation and boosts morale, making people more likely to repeat their helpful actions. The timing of positive reinforcement is crucial. The closer the praise is to the action, the stronger the psychological connection becomes. Your brain creates a direct link between the behavior and the good feeling from being praised. When used consistently, this technique can actually reshape someone's habits without them even realizing it's happening. Trick number 4, mirroring. Mirroring is when you subtly copy the other person's body language during a conversation. If they lean forward, you lean forward too. If they cross their arms, you might do the same. This creates a sense of connection and makes the conversation more comfortable. Mirroring helps build rapport and makes the interaction smoother because it shows that you are in sync with the other person. It's a simple way to improve communication and make the other person feel more at ease. What makes mirroring so powerful is that it works completely below the conscious level. The person being mirrored rarely notices it happening, but their brain registers that you're like them, activating our deep tribal instincts to trust people who are similar to us. Studies show mirroring can increase agreement rates in negotiations by over 30%. Trick number 5, the power of pauses. In conversations, especially during negotiations, using pauses can be very effective. After you make a point or present an offer, stop talking and let the silence hang for a moment. This pause can make the other person think more deeply about what you've said, and sometimes even lead them to offer more information or concessions. The power of pauses lies in their ability to make people feel the need to respond, which can work in your favor. It's a useful technique for gaining an advantage and encouraging more thoughtful responses. Silence creates psychological discomfort that most people rush to fill. When you make your point and then remain silent, the other person feels compelled to speak, often saying more than they intended. Master negotiators know that whoever speaks first after a strategic pause usually gives up the most power in the conversation. Trick number 6, anchoring. Anchoring is a technique where you start with a high number or extreme position in a negotiation to set a reference point. For example, if you are negotiating a salary and start by asking for a high amount, it sets the stage for the discussion. The other party's counteroffer might be closer to what you actually want. Anchoring works because people often base their decisions on the initial number or position presented. It's a useful strategy for making your actual request seem more reasonable compared to the starting point. The psychological power of an anchor is startling. Studies show that even when people know a number is unreasonable or random, it still influences their final decision. Car salespeople use this all the time. They start with the sticker price knowing they'll come down, but that high initial number pulls your counteroffer up much higher than if they'd started with a lower price. Trick number 7, the door in the face. The door in the face technique involves starting with a big request that you expect to be turned down, and then following up with a smaller, more reasonable request. For example, if you ask someone to donate $100 and they refuse, you then ask for $10 instead. This method works because after rejecting the larger request, people are more likely to agree to the smaller one. It leverages the feeling of obligation to agree to the second request after turning down the first one. This technique is effective in various situations such as fundraising or making requests. What makes this technique so effective is the contrast between requests and the guilt people feel after saying no. When someone rejects your large request, they often feel bad about it, even if the request was unreasonable. This creates a psychological need to make up for that rejection by agreeing to your smaller request, which now seems perfectly reasonable by comparison. Trick number 8, foot in the door. The foot in the door technique involves starting with a small request that is easy to agree to and then following up with a larger request. For example, you might first ask someone to help you carry a book, and once they agree, you can then ask them to help with a larger box. This approach works because once people agree to a small request, they are more likely to agree to a larger one later. It relies on the principle of commitment, where agreeing to a small request makes them feel more inclined to say yes to bigger requests. The psychology behind this is fascinating. When someone agrees to your small initial request, they begin to see themselves as the kind of person who helps you. To maintain consistency with this self-image, they feel internally pressured to agree to your larger request later. This works because our brains hate cognitive dissonance, the uncomfortable feeling of our actions not matching our self-perception. Trick number 9, social proof. Social proof is a concept where people look at what others are doing to decide what to do themselves. When trying to persuade someone, mention that others support your idea. For example, you could say, "Many people in our department think starting the meeting earlier would be helpful." This technique works because people often follow the crowd and feel more comfortable with a decision if they know others agree with it. Social proof helps in convincing others by showing that your idea has widespread support. Social proof is one of the most powerful psychological triggers because humans evolved as social creatures who needed to conform to survive. Even today, our brains take shortcuts by assuming that if many people are doing something, it must be correct. This explains why restaurants want to appear busy, why products show most popular labels, and why testimonials are so effective. They all tap into our hardwired need to follow what others are doing. Trick number 10, the Benjamin Franklin effect. The Benjamin Franklin effect is based on the idea that asking someone for a small favor can make them more likely to help you again in the future. If you ask someone to borrow a book and they agree, they might be more willing to help you with future requests. This effect works because doing a favor makes people feel good about themselves and more willing to do more for you. It's a way to build positive relationships and encourage ongoing help by leveraging the goodwill created from small acts of kindness. What's counterintuitive about this trick is that we assume people like us because we do things for them, but psychologically, the opposite is often true. People like us more after they've done something for us. This happens because our brains try to justify our actions. I helped this person, so I must like them, which creates a stronger bond than if you had helped them first. Trick number 11, the scarcity principle. The scarcity principle involves highlighting the limited availability of something to increase its perceived value. For example, if you're selling tickets to an event, you might say, "These tickets are selling out fast. You should grab yours while they last." This statement creates a sense of urgency and makes people feel they need to act quickly to avoid missing out. By emphasizing that something is in limited supply, you make it seem more valuable and desirable. This trick is effective in marketing and sales because it taps into the fear of missing out, encouraging people to make decisions faster and often with less deliberation. Scarcity triggers a primitive response in our brains. We instinctively value what's rare or becoming rare. This explains why limited edition products sell out quickly even at premium prices. When we think something is becoming unavailable, our desire for it increases dramatically, sometimes irrationally. Smart marketers know that while supplies last creates more urgency than any discount ever could. Trick number 12, emotional labeling. Emotional labeling is a technique used to identify and acknowledge the emotions of others, especially during a heated discussion. For instance, if someone appears upset, you might say, "You seem really frustrated right now." By naming their emotion, you show that you are paying attention and that you understand how they feel. This can help calm the situation because it demonstrates empathy and can diffuse tension. Emotional labeling helps in making people feel validated and heard, which often leads to more constructive conversations and resolutions. This technique works so well because emotions often take over our rational thinking. When someone is upset, they're swimming in those feelings, making clear thinking difficult. By simply labeling their emotion accurately, you help their brain process what's happening. The amygdala, our emotional center, actually calms down when emotions are properly identified, allowing the person to regain logical thinking faster. Trick number 13, the reciprocity norm. The reciprocity norm is based on the idea that when you give something small, like a compliment or a small gift, people feel a sense of obligation to return the favor. For example, if you give someone a piece of candy or a sincere compliment, they might be more inclined to help you out in return or do something nice for you. This social norm relies on the principle that people want to reciprocate kindness and maintain balance in their interactions. Using this trick can help build goodwill and strengthen relationships by encouraging mutual support and cooperation. Reciprocity is deeply embedded in human psychology across all cultures. When someone does something for us, we feel uncomfortable until we've repaid them. This feeling is so strong that people will often return a favor with something of greater value, just to relieve the psychological debt. This explains why free samples work so well. That tiny bit of food creates a disproportionate urge to buy the product. Trick number 14, the Zeigarnik effect. The Zeigarnik effect is the tendency for people to remember unfinished tasks better than completed ones. To use this effect, you can leave something open-ended to keep others interested. For example, you might say, "I have a great idea for the project, but I'll tell you more about it tomorrow." This approach creates curiosity and keeps the other person thinking about what's to come. By not providing all the details at once, you maintain their attention and increase their anticipation for the follow-up information. Our brains hate incomplete information. It's like an itch we need to scratch. TV shows use this with cliffhangers, salespeople use it by revealing part of an offer then holding back key details, and teachers use it by posing questions that aren't immediately answered. The psychological tension of the unknown actually creates stronger memory imprints and higher attention levels than if you had shared everything at once. Trick number 15, pacing and leading. Pacing and leading is a technique where you start by matching the other person's behavior or pace in a conversation and then gradually guide them to your desired topic or tone. For example, if someone is speaking slowly and thoughtfully, you start by mirroring their pace and then slowly shift to a faster or different rhythm as you guide the conversation. This technique makes transitions feel more natural and helps in building rapport. By initially aligning with their behavior, you create a sense of connection and make it easier to lead the conversation in a direction you want. This technique is incredibly powerful because it works on a subconscious level. When you pace someone's communication style, tone, and energy level first, they feel understood and connected. Once this rapport is established, they'll naturally follow as you subtly shift toward your desired outcome. The key is making the transition so gradual they don't even notice they're being led to a new perspective or conclusion. Trick number 16, the illusion of choice. The illusion of choice involves presenting options in a way that appears to give someone freedom while actually guiding them toward your preferred outcome. Instead of asking, "Do you want to do this project?" you might ask, "Would you prefer to start this project on Monday or Tuesday?" This approach makes people feel they have control while actually limiting their options to choices you've pre-selected. The illusion of choice works because people value autonomy and respond better when they feel they've made their own decision. By structuring questions this way, you get what you want while avoiding resistance, since the person feels they made the choice themselves. This works because humans have a deep psychological need for autonomy. When we feel our freedom is threatened, we resist. But when we believe we're making our own choices, we're much more committed to the outcome. Smart parents use this with children all the time. "Do you want to wear the red shirt or the blue shirt?" Successfully avoids the battle of, "Do you want to get dressed?" by creating the illusion of choice while achieving the parent's goal. Trick number 17, the power of because. The power of because involves providing a reason when making a request to increase the likelihood of getting a positive response. For example, instead of just asking, "Can I go ahead of you in line?" you might say, "Can I go ahead of you in line because I'm really late for an appointment?" People are more likely to comply when they hear a reason, even if it's a simple one. The word because helps justify the request and makes it seem more reasonable, increasing the chances of getting what you want. In a famous psychology experiment, researchers found that people waiting in line to use a copy machine were much more likely to let someone cut ahead when they used the word because, even if the reason that followed was meaningless. Our brains are so conditioned to accept justifications that the simple trigger word because can bypass our normal resistance to requests. Trick number 18, the Pygmalion effect. The Pygmalion effect refers to the idea that setting high expectations for others can lead them to perform better. If you believe in someone's potential and express this belief, they are more likely to meet or exceed those expectations. For instance, telling a team member, "I know you can handle this project excellently," can boost their confidence and drive them to achieve better results. By setting high standards and showing faith in their abilities, you encourage people to rise to the challenge and perform at their best. This psychological effect is so powerful that it has been proven in multiple educational settings. When teachers were told certain randomly selected students were intellectual bloomers, those students actually showed significant IQ gains compared to their peers, simply because the teachers expected more from them and taught them differently as a result. Your expectations of others literally shape their reality. Trick number 19, reframing failure. Reframing failure involves changing the way you view and present mistakes or setbacks. Instead of focusing on the negative aspects, you frame them as opportunities for growth. For example, if someone makes a mistake, you might say, "This setback is actually a great chance to improve our approach and get even better results." By reframing failure in a positive light, you help people learn from their mistakes and stay motivated. This approach encourages a growth mindset and builds resilience by viewing challenges as learning experiences rather than just failures. The psychological impact of reframing can't be overstated. When a setback is labeled as failure, it triggers shame, defense mechanisms, and avoidance behaviors. But when the exact same situation is reframed as feedback or a learning opportunity, it activates completely different neural pathways associated with growth and problem solving. The situation hasn't changed, but the brain's response to it has been completely transformed. Trick number 20, the halo effect. The halo effect is the tendency for a positive impression of someone in one area to influence how you view them overall. For instance, if you highlight a person's positive trait early on, such as saying, "You have a great eye for detail," it can make others view them more favorably in other aspects as well. This positive first impression can shape how people perceive their overall abilities and character. By focusing on and praising a positive quality, you create a favorable impression that can enhance how others see and respond to the person. The halo effect works in reverse too. One negative trait can contaminate people's perception of all your other qualities. This is why smart politicians and business leaders are careful to establish positive first impressions. Our brains look for patterns and consistency, so after forming an initial positive impression, we tend to interpret ambiguous actions in a positive light rather than reassessing our opinion. Trick number 21, time constraints. Using time constraints can be a powerful way to prompt quicker decisions. For example, if you need someone to make a decision fast, you might say, "I need to know by the end of the day." By setting a deadline, you create a sense of urgency that encourages the other person to act more quickly. Time constraints can help speed up responses and keep things moving when decisions are needed promptly. This tactic works by making the time available seem limited, which can push people to prioritize and take action sooner rather than later. Time constraints work by triggering our fear of loss. When something is available only for a limited time, we're afraid of missing out. This explains why limited time offers are standard in sales. The interesting psychological aspect is that decisions made under time pressure often bypass our analytical thinking and rely more on emotion, which can lead people to make choices they might not make with more consideration. Trick number 22, perspective taking. Perspective taking involves asking someone to consider a situation from another viewpoint. For example, you might say, "Imagine how our clients feel when they encounter this issue. How can we improve their experience?" Encouraging others to see things from a different perspective helps them understand the broader impact and can lead to more thoughtful solutions. This approach can be especially useful in problem-solving and improving customer service as it fosters empathy and a deeper understanding of the issue at hand. When we ask someone to take another's perspective, we're doing something psychologically powerful. We're activating their mirror neurons, the same brain structures involved in empathy. This temporary shift in viewpoint can actually change their emotional response to a situation and make them more open to compromise. It's particularly effective when someone is stuck in their own perspective and resistant to new ideas. Trick number 23, the contrast principle. The contrast principle involves placing two different items or ideas next to each other to highlight their differences. For example, you might say, this model costs $500, but this one is only $300. By presenting a more expensive option first, the second option appears more attractive in comparison. This technique works because people often make judgments based on relative comparisons rather than absolute values. By using contrast, you can make the more favorable option seem like a better deal. This principle explains why salespeople show you the expensive item first, why a hand feels hot water as hotter when it was previously in cold water, and why real estate agents often show you less appealing properties before the one they actually want to sell you. Our brains are wired for relative comparisons, not absolute judgments, which makes contrast one of the most reliably effective psychological techniques. Trick number 24, the IKEA effect. The IKEA effect is the tendency for people to value things more highly if they have put effort into creating them. For example, if you want people to be more invested in a project, you might involve them in the process by saying, "Could you help me brainstorm ideas for this campaign?" By involving others in the creation or planning stages, they become more committed and attached to the outcome. This effect works because effort and involvement increase personal investment and perceived value. The fascinating aspect of this psychological principle is that people will value something they help create even if the final product is objectively lower quality than a professionally made alternative. Studies show people place higher value on things they assemble themselves, from furniture to Build-A-Bear toys, even when they're aware the assembly took minimal skill. This explains why people defend their ideas so vigorously. They're not just defending an idea, but their personal investment in creating it. Trick number 25, the decoy effect. The decoy effect involves introducing a third option to make one of the original choices look more appealing. For instance, you might present, we have a small size for $3, a medium for $5, and a large for $6. The medium seems like a good deal, right? By placing a less attractive option next to the original choices, you make one of the original options look better by comparison. This technique helps guide people toward a preferred choice by making it appear as the most reasonable or advantageous option. Businesses use this constantly. Movie theaters offer small, medium, and large popcorn with pricing designed to make the large seem like an obvious choice. Subscription services offer basic, standard, and premium plans with features and pricing carefully calibrated to push most customers to the middle option. Our brains struggle with absolute value judgments but excel at comparative ones, making this technique remarkably effective. Trick number 26, the placebo effect. The placebo effect shows that believing in the effectiveness of something can influence its success. For example, you might say, "I've seen this method work wonders for others." To boost confidence and positive thinking. Encouraging someone to believe in the effectiveness of a method or product can enhance their experience and results. This effect works because expectations can shape outcomes, making people more likely to achieve positive results if they are confident in what they are doing. The placebo effect isn't just about medicine, it applies to almost everything in life. When you believe something will work, your brain literally creates different chemical responses. Studies show placebos can trigger endorphins and dopamine release. This explains why confidence-building pep talks actually improve performance, why brand-name products often work better than identical generics, and why believing in a solution is sometimes half the battle. Trick number 27, loss aversion. Loss aversion involves emphasizing what someone might lose if they don't take action. For instance, you could say, "If we don't address this now, we could miss out on a big opportunity." By highlighting potential losses rather than gains, you tap into people's fear of losing something valuable. Loss aversion works because people are often more motivated to avoid losing something than to gain something of equal value. This technique can drive quicker action and decision-making by focusing on the risks of an action. Psychologically, we feel the pain of loss about twice as strongly as the pleasure of an equivalent gain. This explains why "don't lose your discount" is more motivating than "get a discount," why "stop wasting money" works better than "save money," and why fear of missing out, FOMO, drives so much of our behavior. Smart persuaders know that framing the same outcome in terms of potential loss creates much stronger motivation. Trick number 28, the power of touch. A light touch on the arm or shoulder during a conversation can create a sense of connection and increase compliance. For example, a gentle touch can help build rapport and make the other person more receptive to your requests. This technique works because physical touch can enhance feelings of warmth and trust. However, it is important to use this tactic sparingly and appropriately, as unwanted or excessive touch can have the opposite effect. The science behind this is fascinating. Brief, appropriate touch releases oxytocin, the bonding hormone, in both people. Studies show waiters who briefly touch a customer's hand when returning change receive higher tips, doctors who touch patients' arms are rated as more caring, and salespeople who incorporate appropriate touch have higher success rates. Touch creates a subconscious connection that bypasses our logical defenses. Trick number 29, the foot-in-mouth effect. The foot-in-mouth effect involves admitting to a small fault or mistake to make yourself seem more relatable and human. For example, you might say, "I missed a small detail on the report, but I fixed it now." By acknowledging a minor error, you create a sense of honesty and transparency. This approach can make you appear more approachable and trustworthy, which can help in building rapport and making others more likely to respond positively to you. This works because perfection actually creates distance and suspicion. When someone seems flawless, we become more guarded and look harder for their flaws. By voluntarily exposing a minor weakness, you paradoxically appear more confident and trustworthy. Politicians use this when they admit to minor past mistakes while campaigning. It makes their other claims seem more credible and makes them appear more authentic. Trick number 30, the endowment effect. The endowment effect is the tendency for people to value things more highly simply because they own them. For example, you might say, "How would you like to lead this initiative?" By giving someone ownership or responsibility for a project, they are more likely to value it and become committed to its success. This effect works because ownership increases personal investment and attachment, making people more motivated to contribute and succeed. This psychological principle explains why free trials work so well. Once we have something in our possession, we value it more and have difficulty giving it up. Car dealers let you test drive because once you've imagined the car as yours, your perceived value of it increases. Similarly, when people take ownership of an idea or project, they'll work harder for its success than if they're simply following someone else's plan.